As a kid, one of my all-time favorite series was Super Smash Bros. For a Nintendo-obsessed dork like I was, it was hard to imagine anything could be more awesome than a game in which they combined all of their iconic characters. And while I still very much enjoy Smash to this day, there is one thing missing that I haven't been able to stop thinking about. Something that I think legitimately altered my brain chemistry forever. And that something is Subspace Emissary from Super Smash Bros. Brawl. This story mode takes you on a wild adventure with the game's cast, accompanied by some of the most aura-filled cinematics in Nintendo's history. I've spent the 18 years since wishing and hoping for anything to bless my eyes the way this mode did, and for 18 years I've been left disappointed. So let's revisit Subspace Emissary and see if it's truly worth all the hype I've built up in my head, or if I was just a kid easily entertained by the panache of it all. In Subspace Emissary, an evil force known as Taboo sets out on a plan to destroy the world of trophies. By manipulating Master Hand and using him, he's able to convince several Nintendo villains to aid his goal. They work to stop the heroes who are trying to resist this destruction, turning them into trophies to stop them in their tracks, allowing for Taboo's subspace bombs to detonate. However, all of that is actually not explained. That summary comes from The Dojo, a website that was used to promote Brawl before release, and some information from in-game trophies. In the actual mode itself, you're just dropped into the fray, with Kirby and Mario duking it out until they are interrupted by dark clouds and the first subspace bomb. From that moment forward, this story is just go, 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 without much explanation, and that can make things feel quite disjointed. I never really knew what was going on, I just knew the bad guys were turning people into trophies and setting off bombs. For what reason, I wasn't sure, but I also never really cared, because these cutscenes are absolutely phenomenal, even if they are lacking in the context department. There is something so rugged about the way the scenes are presented. The characters all have this darker look to them, very unlike what you see in most of their actual games. And the way they interact with one another is Smash Bros. At its absolute best. Seeing Yoshi and Link team up, or watching Diddy Kong and Fox take on a goddamn Rayquaza just never gets old. And with each level having you collect trophies or stickers of other random, often obscure Nintendo characters, it's a non-stop nostalgia trip from start to finish. I also loved how Subspace Emissary allowed characters to shine in ways that, let's be honest, they never will in any other game. Having modern day representations of Ice Climber levels or fully rendered cutscenes of Lucas and Ness are just not going to be found anywhere other than Smash Bros. One of the aspects I always loved about this series was how grand it felt. The way it was presented like an event, where everyone involved was to be celebrated. It didn't matter if you were Mario, Zelda, or a robot peripheral from the NES era, you were a Smash Brother now. And nothing reflects that idea better than Subspace Emissary. It's these elements that really keep the experience entertaining, as the actual gameplay is admittedly just okay. Most of it is very simple platforming sections with waves of fairly repetitive enemies coming at you. And there are occasional very frustrating moments where you can start to notice this is a fighting game posing as a platformer because the jumps are just not precise enough for what you need to do. It doesn't ruin the fun or anything, but yeah, there were some pretty annoying segments. On the flip side, there were some levels that I really did enjoy, such as the Metroid-inspired level that was basically a baby's first super simplistic Metroid game. That was pretty cool to see, since at the time, we had not gotten a 2D Metroid game on a home console in quite a while, and it would take many more years after Brawl to ever see it again. So to have that represented here was pretty sick. But for the most part, I'll be honest and say the level-to-level gameplay didn't do a ton for me on this replay. It was always fun enough that I didn't want to stop playing, but it was never the true driving force. That always came back to the cutscenes and wacky combination of Nintendo icons. Eventually, Subspace Emissary culminates into its final act, the Great Maze. It's here that all of the characters have learned of Taboo's true intention and need to work together to stop him, but nearly all of them have been turned into trophies. so the select few who are still around need to find and release them. This begins you on your journey through the maze, where condensed versions of all the levels you've been to are now connected, and you have to find and fight evil versions of each cast member to free them. I was really excited to reach this point of the revisit because I have a very distinct memory of playing through this level with my childhood best friend. I was struggling to get through it, so he brought over his Brawl strategy guide to help us figure it out and find some of the secrets. Yes, kids, back when YouTube was still in its early days, it wasn't as easy to look up any part of a game you needed help with. And even if you could find it, it usually looked a little something like this, so it really wasn't all that helpful. So we actually did use the strategy guide to get us where we needed to be, which was a cool experience that I'll never really have again. I remember it took us what felt like forever, flipping through the pages, eating chips, drinking soda. It was the perfect day. And eventually we finally made it all the way through, and it felt like I had reached the top of Mount Everest. It's a day I can recall like it was last week, and I was super interested to try it again. Would I struggle as much the second time, or was it actually not that difficult? Well, as is often the case when I revisit games from my childhood, I realized I was apparently just absurdly bad at them at the time because the Great Maze is really not that big of a deal. You can just follow each dot to see where it will take you, and eventually it even pings exact locations of where you still need to explore. I don't even know what I was so confused by, honestly. Playing through it now, it felt like less of an incredible hurdle and more of a game length extending time waster, but I did still appreciate the level design of connecting all the locales we had been to previously. And it ending with the surprise reveal of Sonic showing up to help take down Taboo was just unbelievably hype. The devs knew what they were doing here, and they absolutely cooked. So while the gameplay wasn't always the greatest, these cutscenes and moments like Sonic appearing had the exact effect I anticipated from my memories. Moments like this, or Ridley attacking Captain Falcon's vehicle, or the scene where you have a fight with an injured Master Hand laying behind you, I could just go on and on about how awesome it all is. And I was so happy to see that this wasn't a childhood memory overtaking reality. This mode really is just simply one of the coolest things Nintendo has ever done, which then made me reflect on some of their more modern output. In general, I think Subspace Emissary represents a side of Nintendo that we don't often get to see anymore. The early 2000s were a super unique period of their history where they weren't afraid to get a little edgy with it. Games like Melee and Brawl or Mario Strikers Charged gave us such cool takes on their characters, primarily because they were more intense. And who could forget some of their marketing of the time, like the Nintendo DS Touching is Good campaign, or the infamous Mario tribal tattoo render that I still can't believe is actually real. It's all such a product of its time, where gamers were rebelling against their childhood games as they started to grow up. Nintendo felt like they needed to keep up, and this was what we got as a result, before they eventually fully embraced casual audiences with the Wii. Obviously, that pivot to casual worked out extremely well for them, so I don't fault them for it, but man do I miss when they got weird with their games. It feels like ever since the big success of New Super Mario Bros., their characters and series have been a bit more sterile, and I get it. They want cohesion within their franchises to help them be more recognizable and easily marketable. And this pivot certainly hasn't stopped them from creating some of the greatest games of the modern era. But playing through Subspace Emissary again showed me what we've been missing. There are so many scenes throughout this campaign that I seriously doubt Nintendo would even allow nowadays. Suicidal Robs nodding their heads at each other as they embrace their demise, or Master Hand having visible blood stains just wouldn't happen now. I know you want to be marketable to kids and families, but seeing Nintendo characters in a story like this is just so awesome. That's the sauce that Subspace Emissary brought, and it's what I miss so much in the Smash games that followed it. I always wondered why they dropped this concept, and the answers we did eventually really get left me very unsatisfied. In 2023, series creator Masahiro Sakurai made a video on his YouTube channel about their beloved fighter reveal trailers and mentioned Subspace Emissary within it. He said they created the cutscenes we see throughout that mode because he felt they could be a nice reward for players as they continued making progress. But naturally, people started posting the cutscenes online, including official media outlets posting them before the game was even officially out. This meant, according to Sakurai, they didn't really work as rewards since they could be accessed elsewhere without even playing. Apparently, that really pissed him off because, in his own words, he decided to stop making movies that cut in during gameplay because of this experience. Now, Sakurai is one of my favorite game developers ever, and I have the utmost respect for him, but this was a really strange take. Not making cutscenes in games because people are going to post videos of it just seems like a super weird hill to die on. It's so much more fun to watch these little vignettes in between levels instead of just being funneled from fight to fight with nothing going on. World of Light from Ultimate is a perfect example because it has a badass intro cutscene that gives me the exact same feeling Subspace did, but then they just stop, and it makes the mode super boring, and honestly a total slog to get through. But Subspace Emissary never gets old, because in between each level, you get to be entertained by whatever weird mismatch of characters interact next. Because by the way, that still holds true today. These cutscenes have been accessible online for nearly 2 decades at this point, and I watched them repeatedly as a kid, but they still had the same exact effect today as when I saw them for the very first time. Saying you'll never do in-game cutscenes again because people will upload them just doesn't cut it for me. It's worth noting, the entire point of Sakurai's video was that the fighter reveal trailers we got throughout Smash 4 and Ultimate were essentially meant to replace what we got in Subspace Emissary, and I can see that. Having the characters interact with each other in these trailers as we eagerly awaited who would pop out next was incredible, and brought me some of my fondest gaming memories of the era. They are super well done and a joy to watch back, but I'm never going to not miss also having them as part of an in-game story mode. And I don't feel Sakurai's reasoning for ditching the concept is especially rational. He does also mention how expensive and time-consuming these cutscenes were to make, which may have accidentally revealed the true intention behind the decision. It's no secret that most people buying a Smash game are probably doing so to play multiplayer with their friends or play online. Nintendo probably just looked at the data and felt spending that much time and money on a side mode that most wouldn't even touch just wasn't worth it. Using those funds to create huge marketing moments with new character reveals though, yeah, that'll work. That's the quiet part of the equation Sakurai probably doesn't want to admit. And while I do see the logic there, I would also argue one of the main reasons why so few people interact with Smash's single-player modes nowadays is because of this decision. The single-player offerings in Ultimate, and especially in Smash 4, felt very hollow to me, and not super fun to play. Meanwhile, I spent tons of time with Subspace Emissary. I guess what I'm saying is, while I understand the logistics of not doing Subspace-style modes, I feel it was a mistake to move away from it entirely. And I also feel there's a legitimate argument to be made that now is the exact time to revisit it. I often think about the next Smash Bros. Game, which as of this video has not been officially announced, but we all know it's coming eventually. I mean, take one look at the sales numbers and tell me with a straight face that Sakurai wasn't sent straight back to the Smash mines the second Kirby Air Riders went gold. I fully expect we will see the next entry within a few years, and I'm sure it'll be great, but I think they might have a little bit of a problem on their hands. The subtitle of Smash's most recent entry, Ultimate, was quite fitting, as it truly became the ultimate Smash Bros. Game. It brought back every fighter that had ever been playable in the series, had so much content I'm surprised it was even able to fit onto a single cartridge, and it perfected nearly every element present in prior titles. As if that wasn't enough, it then got supported for multiple years with new DLC characters, maps, and game modes, adding on to the already colossal size of the game. It leaves me wondering, where exactly can they go from here? It's actually a very similar feeling I had with Nintendo's other flagship Switch game, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. That game had all of Mario Kart 8 from Wii U, plus what they added with the deluxe version, and then received even more content after that, including basically an entire full game's worth of new tracks. That made whatever the next Mario Kart game was hard to envision because its content was going to seem lacking almost no matter what. And I think many of the decisions made with Mario Kart World show that Nintendo was aware of this concern. The titular open world mode added something brand new that the series never had before. Characters were given outfits, represented as different character slots on the select screen, artificially inflating how many options appeared to be available. And of course, there was the controversial intermission course design that allowed them to essentially make several different versions of each track. All of this was done as an attempt to try and live up to the content available in 8 Deluxe. But some elements, like the intermissions, were a step too far that legitimately ruined the game for some people. Regardless of how you personally feel about those choices, you can't deny that almost all of it is directly tied back to the need to live up to 8 Deluxe and ideally surpass it. I feel Smash Bros. Now finds itself in the exact same position. Think about how immense the work cut out for them is. I mean, right off the bat, they need to get all of Ultimate's characters playable again. The everyone is here moment was so powerful that you really can't ever go back, because anything less than that makes it an immediate downgrade right out of the box. Once you do get the nearly 90 playable characters all working again, you of course need to also add new ones, and that's before we've even mentioned maps, items, assists, spirits, and all of the side content Smash games are famous for. At that point though, my question is, will that even be enough? It will have been over 10 years between Smash games. Will fans be satisfied with a few new character or map additions? If not, you need to find a new angle, which is when things can get a bit slippery and you end up making a choice that turns off some players, as we saw with Mario Kart World. Assuming Nintendo won't want to repeat those mistakes, doing anything to meaningfully alter the next Smash gameplay experience seems very risky, meaning a major gameplay evolution might not be in the cards. So how then could they possibly make a new Smash product that lives up to its ultimate predecessor? Well, maybe, just maybe, Subspace Emissary is the answer. We have not seen a mode like this in a Smash game since Brawl. We have yet to get a true campaign experience with fully animated cutscenes the whole way through like Subspace Emissary did, and clearly the fanbase wants it. That's why the Smash Ultimate character reveal trailers were so popular and exciting. We got to see these characters interact with others who we never would have expected, placed into scenarios we had once only dreamed of. Now imagine a whole story mode with animations like that, where Mario finds himself stumbling into a Minecraft cave, or Kirby gets thrown off a cliff by Kazuya. That's what Subspace Emissary was, and that's what made it so awesome. I understand their concerns about budget and time constraints, and the inevitable spoilers that will be found online, but if at any point Sakurai and Nintendo find themselves looking for ways to significantly differentiate this next entry, returning to Subspace Emissary, or at least the presentation of it, seems like the obvious answer to me. It would make the whole package feel so much more complete, and it would offer one of the only real tangible things fans wanted that Ultimate failed to deliver on. Revisiting Subspace Emissary for this video was so much fun, and I'm super glad I did it. While some parts of the experience didn't hold up all that well, the general vibe that I remembered from playing it as a kid was completely intact, and getting to relive that was incredible. It reaffirmed why I fell so deeply in love with Smash Bros. All those years ago, and was a strong reminder that there really may not be a cooler franchise in gaming. I just hope that one day, hopefully one day soon, we'll get to experience a mode like this again, or at least something similar that can allow the series to truly shine in the same way Subspace Emissary did for Brawl.